Welcome to Sustainability Now, an exploration of technologies and paradigms to shape a world that works. Designed for socially conscious entrepreneurs and individuals interested in responsible stewardship of the planet. Sustainability Now covers food, energy, housing, water, waste, health, economics, and consciousness. Welcome to your community, Sustainability Now, with your host, Mira Rubin.
Welcome, everybody, to Sustainability Now, Technologies and Paradigms to Shape a World That Works. I'm your host, Mira Rubin, and I can't tell you how excited I am to welcome today's guests. We have Amzie Smith and Amy Oskins here, and they are from Pangea Builders, and they are part of a project in Ambler, PA, which happens to be very close to where I am, and also Tamakwa, PA. And Amzie is the project foreman, and Amy is the project manager. And what's happening is they're building an Earthship greenhouse in Ambler, PA. And I have had a love affair with Earthships for years. So this is kind of a dream come true to have you guys here with me and to be able to be following your project so closely. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mira.
We're really glad to have you here. So how about we start out by just sort of informing people who may not know what an Earthship is.
An Earthship is a freestanding sustainable structure built from recycled materials such as used tires, bottles, cans, and anything else that we can reclaim. It generates its own power, processes its own sewage, and leaves room, and regulates its own temperature and leaves room for growing, etc. It's a very organic structure built with modern day technologies.
And they can be so magical in appearance. I was so taken by the beauty of them. For anybody listening to this or watching this, you'll be able to find links on our website at sustainabilitynow.global. This podcast actually is a bit unusual in that we're going to focus on this project pretty specifically because it's happening right now. Right now, we don't usually do things time-based, but we're in the middle of September in 2018. And how long is this project going to go for, do you think?
Another 3 weeks, so it'll be about 4 weeks total.
Okay, great. And so we're making a call for volunteers.
Yes,
And
everybody'd like to enjoy the learning how to build with our type of construction, etc., and use the materials as for construction is more than welcome to join us.
Beautiful. And are there still openings in the workshop as well?
We always have openings. We'll always accommodate.
Okay, so the workshop is a classroom portion in addition to the actual building of the Earthship, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a bit more about this whole Earthship thing and why the Ambler project specifically is really historic. Maybe you could fill people in on why this is such an important and big deal.
It's more the environment than the building itself. I mean, the building is exciting in general. These types of technologies are exciting because we do need to move towards a more independent, sustainable lifestyle in general as a civilization. Just look around and we can see resources are diminishing. But I've done a lot of permitting, and in a rural setting, it's a lot easier with building departments, code enforcement, etc. Not that the codes are drastically different. It's just there's more space and less people. But in such a dense environment, living situation or for people around here, new things aren't as well received typically, building with, say, used tires or bottles and stuff like that. So getting a permit here just outside of Philly is truly groundbreaking in that respect. And then being able to work with these code enforcers, which their jobs are very important. It saves countless lives every day. But importantly, having them acknowledge this is a safe and suitable construction method in the mainstream it's phenomenal. It's a real step forward, and that's where the real excitement is.
So because of the permitting of this building, which is actually a greenhouse rather than a home, but the permitting of this building for the construction with they're actually rammed earth tires it's a first, and it paves the way for being able to have these kinds of structures in cities throughout the country, right?
It does, and it also, it shows that you can grow your own food. And we live in one of these, and it's just amazing how they work. And so it's not just a structure just to have in your backyard. It actually has purpose and use, and it works very well.
So, Amy, in a conversation you and I had about living in an Earthship, you were talking about how it's more than a home. It's actually an organism in a way.
Yeah, it requires for you to live in it to make sure that all your systems keep functioning. You have your water catchment, and, with that, your water gets recycled 4 different times. So if you're growing plants, then you have water that gets used for your planters, and the plants filter your water. Your plants are watered with that water, and then that water goes into your toilet and you use that. But I mean, first you have your water catchment, and you can use that for showers and in your sinks. Then it goes into your planters, and then it goes out to your black water.
And so what happens to the black water?
Go ahead.
It is.
I mean, this is one of the things that's so amazing to me about an Earthship. Now, it's not going to be incorporated in the greenhouse because it's not going to have black water. But let's talk about in an actual Earthship how that works.
It's processed through an exterior botanical cell that is sealed, separated from the earth. So we are using the plants to absorb the water, and through transpiration release it into the atmosphere. The reason we want to keep it isolated, and this back to the concept of sustainability, is pollution and groundwater pollution is a major problem. And yes, the effluent from a septic is cleansed through going through the earth, but there are still lines of contamination. We still read about people getting sick. The privilege of an extended lifespan, or the extended lifespan we enjoy now, is by virtue of clean water. So why contaminate any other sources, especially when you're using this type of technology in third world countries, etc., where the streams and everything's already polluted enough? It's important to keep it isolated, keep it on site, and process it there. It's removing also the necessity for any sort of grid infrastructure. The house is sustainable. It's a standalone system in itself.
So what happens to the effluent?
It's transpired through the plants. So when they're
so it's a full, complete cycle.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
And with that being said, living in one of these homes, and if you're living in this home, then you're keeping all that whole cycle going constantly.
You're an integral part of the biosphere, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's so cool. So I for folks that are new to the concept of Earthships and haven't seen the images on the website yet, again, sustainabilitynow.global. Let's talk about really what it is, if we can give a visual, because a lot of people are going to be listening to this as a podcast, so they don't have a visual. So maybe you can help paint a picture of what this is, like how exactly the tires are used. We've been recording this and providing sequential images on the website, and there'll be updates and all kinds of great resources there and information. But for those that are listening, how can you paint a picture for us?
Well, when you're building it, it looks very much like a conventional job site. You've got guys running around cursing and Complaining about their wives, etc. And while all this is happening, you're watching the tire walls go up, being compacted with dirt. A tire, basically what a tire becomes is a steel and rubber encasement for dirt adobe. It becomes a 300-pound brick. That's how much dirt goes into one. And they're stacked just like masonry, staggered in a rear wall to act as the wall and the structure, part of the structure itself, and also as a thermal battery because it's a passive solar home. So the solar insulation, the energy coming in, is absorbed by these walls and stored for the nighttime. This way, we're not dependent on outside energy such as fuel oil, coal, natural gas, propane to heat the structure. That's pretty much, this is conventional framing for the front face, masonry work, bottle walls going up, a lot of dirt moving, heavy equipment. That's what a normal job site looks like, during construction. The end product looks drastically different depending on your finishes, etc. From the inside, it looks like a very much conventional house. You have the south side because it is a passive solar home and relies on the sun for its heating and cooling. You have a front face, which is glass, thermal glass. So it's a very bright home on the inside. There's a lot of sunshine. At the same time, like I had mentioned before, you're charging the mass, which is the tires and the berm behind it, for keeping the building at a stable temperature throughout the night or on cloudy days when the sun is not there. The back wall, the actual tire wall, is smooth plaster. You'd never know there were tires in there. Unless somebody told you, you probably wouldn't pay much attention to it, as a matter of fact. And the finishes are typically plaster, normally warm colors. It's a very comforting home, but a lot of woodwork as well, a lot of stain usually, but you can finish out with anything else you'd like. If you want a more industrial look, then you would do that. You want whatever you really want, you can do. It's very free form and open. Once the actual tires are up and the framing's there, it's a blank slate. It's comfortable on the inside, very warm. Usually because of the gray water, we recycle our water numerous times. With the gray water planters on the inside, there's a lot of plant life, so you feel very attached to the earth, but not in like a playing in the sandbox way. More like when people have potted plants and stuff around their house. It feels very lived in, very comforting.
And a lot of us, living in Taos, we have the mountains and the view of the mountains, and there's snow on top of them, of course, throughout the winter. And so you may have tropical plants as well inside your home, and not always tropical plants, but there's a lot of banana trees that get grown, and it's beautiful.
It's lush also, just
Mm-hmm.
really luxuriant in so many ways, I think. You mentioned bottle walls. So for folks that this is new to, could you describe what the bottle walls are?
Bottle walls, well, here's the thing with Earthships, and it's really with home building in general. Basically, homes revolve around or are built with whatever materials are available or indigenous to the area. And that's, out here we use frame housing. In the Southwest, they're using adobes and mud bricks because that's what was available. Earthships are not very far off in that general principle because there's no place on this planet you're going to go where there aren't tires, there aren't bottles around. I haven't been to a country yet where they don't drink beer, so or cans, etc. So it's the equivalent of using a forest to build a house. We're just using the stuff because we see it as a building material and the neighbor sees it as refuse. I could call his forest garbage too, but he's still going to see it as a building material. So, and cement is very, very much, pretty much indigenous throughout the world as well. We don't like to use a whole lot of cement, so we use the bottles to displace it during our construction. But we do like the mass of the cement as well. So the bottles, they're formed, they're used to form the cement in a honeycomb structure, which provides strength in the wall. So the cement, the bottles are actually embedded in the cement, and the cement comes up in a web around them, and they're staggered because the honeycomb is the strongest shape besides a circle that there is. Bees have proved that a billion trillion times. And when it's all done, it provides a very beautiful, if you leave the bottles exposed, wall that's functional and helps with that storage that I'd mentioned before, the thermal mass or the thermal dynamics of the building. So it eliminates a lot of the bottles from the landfills and provides another useful building material for us. So we're not recycling, we're repurposing. We're taking things that otherwise would not be used necessarily. Bottles can be recycled, but that's very energy intensive in itself. A lot of recycling programs, it's cheaper to go get the original material. So a lot of them don't work because without a financial incentive, well, it's just not going to happen. We've proven that over and over again in history. If there's no financial incentive, nothing happens. So we have an incentive to displace cement. It's financial. We want to incorporate the design and beauty of the bottles so it's aesthetically pleasing. And it provides us with a wall so we're not cold.
Great. And the way that these bottle bricks are made is by cutting the bottles to the bottoms, taking the bottoms from two separate bottles and then fusing them together. What do? You tape them together, or?
So we take the bottles, we take two matching bottles, can be wine bottles, beer bottles, soda bottles, different colors as well. And we cut those depending on how big we need them. And then we tape those two together, and we make sure that they're cleaned out real nice inside first, tape them together, and then they just make a bottle brick.
And then you stack those and pour the concrete around them? Is that how that works?
No, it's very much like bricklaying. You use your cement, you lay it down, put the bottles in there, lay down another layer of the cement, and you build up from there.
Gotcha.
So you're treating them very much like a brick, just larger mortar joints.
Very cool. And it really does make the most beautiful mosaic.
You can go all out with it if you want to. Any pattern you like, any sort of color, theme that you're trying for. A lot of people like blues and greens. I tend to stay away from brown for the most part, but some people incorporate it well with a nice tan plaster finish. It comes out nice.
Yeah, it's very sculptural to me. Anyway, I come from an art background, so I just love the artistry that's possible with the Earthships. So let's get back.
Plastic bottles. I'm sorry. You could also take plastic bottles, the bottoms of those, and you can put those in the walls too, and just leave the very bottom exposed, and so it makes like star.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Shapes as well. So, yeah. So then that way we're using plastic and keeping that out of landfills or the ocean.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have said this is passive solar. Does that mean there's no solar panels on the building, or do you use solar panels also?
No, we use solar panels as well for the generation of electricity. The passive solar is in the interior temperature control, maintaining a stable living environment of around 73 degrees. So that's the passive aspect. The active is in, generating solar hot water or solar electricity.
Gotcha. Beautiful. So with this Ambler project, let's talk about some of the hurdles you guys have and are and anticipate potentially encountering in the execution of the project.
Right now, except for the rain, everything seems to be going reasonably smooth. We did run into, with the building department, just fine tuning or really getting with them on what they expect, what they want. They were able to provide us a list of exactly what we need to do to conform to their specifications, which is very nice of them. Makes it easy. It's step by step. So we've started doing that, and I expect that's going to continue to go as smoothly as can be. I don't see any reason not to. Construction is going along. It's proceeding nicely. So I'm hoping it's just another smooth build. And I mean, the rain.
Yes.
Rain's tough.
So let's just talk about what kinds of things come into play in getting a building like this permitted. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is with the permitting process. A lot of it is just you gotta. Everything requires a precedence, so you have to prove it's been done somewhere else because nobody wants to be stuck holding the bag. The building department doesn't want the liability, engineer doesn't want the liability, the builder doesn't want the liability. So you have to go through it and say, hey, we've done this and done this and done this. We've done the testing and get it, to them, showing them that, yeah, I understand you're scared of something new, but it's proven. And ultimately what happens is eventually you get everybody on the same page and you get a permit, and they'll make you go through numerous hurdles. Prove this, prove that, do this, but it's proven technology. There are hundreds upon hundreds of Earthships built. The same type of tires, the same type of form, same type of bottle walls, same, water dynamics, etc. So it's a lot easier than it was when I first got started 15 years ago. Then you really, really, really had to go through it. Ambler was a bit more difficult, like I said, than a rural area, but that's because of the population density, and it's understandable. If you got neighbors 20 feet from you, then you're going to have different setback requirements, different ways of doing things. But once provided all the research, all the precedent information, they've been very helpful. So we've really gotten through that. And that's like I said before, a very thrilling part of this project because it really does set, because it is a dense area. We're not in the middle of Wyoming, where the nearest neighbor is 2 miles away. We could throw a rock very, very, very easily at the next neighbor. So it sets a precedence for a very rural area, which we're hoping to build upon.
And they've actually been pretty understanding, and they're pretty excited. We've had one of the inspectors out, and the other day he just kept commenting how, yeah, he's never seen something like this, but he believes that it could work and that it will work. And so it's just, like you said, it's setting that precedence. And then once people have a visual and they see this, then we definitely feel that this area will be very open and welcome, to having more of these. So.
Well, it's a landmark. It's a huge, exciting landmark for being able to have sustainable living in an urban environment.
Mm-hmm.
So just from my vantage point, because I've been fortunate enough to see when you place the very first tire, it's called the God tire, which I love. It's the tire that is the guide for the layout of the rest of the building, right? Is that an accurate rendition or definition for that, Amzi?
Well, yes, it's reasonably accurate. It's as far as establishing level in your string lines, etc. You start with one tire and you just measure everything off of there is one fixed point for the most accuracy.
Okay, so for folks that are listening and unfamiliar, the tires are rammed with earth using a sledgehammer and lots of sweat and strength. And one of the things that you guys encountered is that there's a tree that is in the way of where the earth berm behind the tire wall is going to be. And because it would potentially damage the tree, it can't be buried in the earth berm. So that the tree has to be removed, for example. Just so, because it's an urban area, another thing that had to be done was to put up a silt fence. That's SILT, and that was for dirt runoff so that it wouldn't go into a neighbor's yard. So you guys, are there any other kinds of specific considerations that are part of the permitting process in this particular project that are new in your experience because of the location?
No, it's a fairly typical permit with your inspection schedule, etc.
Cool. Cool. So we're calling for volunteers. And also, let's just talk a little bit about the Tamakwa project, because that's where you're actually doing gray water retrofit. Is that accurate?
We call it a retrofit. We're gonna take care of their gray water and their black water. Get that all going together from a house. There's multiple structures on the property. We're up at Stonehenge Gardens in Tamakwa, and it's a place to come. They do yoga. They have weddings here that they host. It's sitting on 10 acres of beautiful land with gardens and just a very peaceful place. And so they also want to incorporate a vegan restaurant in they call it the guest house. So we're trying to get them all set up to where all their water is running together, and they're able to also have a better greenhouse than what they have already on the property. So we'll incorporate, water catchment from the roof here and take that, comes into the greenhouse and gets used for planters. And so we have the whole Earthship vibe going on, and trying to bring it all together. And so we call it a retrofit, meaning that it's already a structure. It doesn't have any of these things that we do for Earthships, and we incorporate that with conventional housing or structures.
Awesome.
So it's going to have an Earthship feel.
Yes, sounds great. And it's also an opportunity for folks who want to volunteer or to take the workshop to learn to learn firsthand how to do the water processing aspect of the Earthship. So I want to just have you guys share a bit about you and what brought you to this journey. Amzie, you said you've been doing this for 15 years. And this is hard labor. This is really tough work. What brought you to Earthships?
Well, I've worked with Jonah Reynolds throughout the past 15 years, and this particular adventure, I just dropped him a line. He said, "Hey, let's go do it."
Wow.
So I said, "All right," but he told me it was going to be like 2 weeks.
15 years later, right?
Yeah, quite a while later, it's since I was young, I've been doing it, since 23, so most of my adult life. So I'm very familiar with everything from the design down to the actual construction, the concepts, the teaching of it. It's a long time. It's pretty much my adult life. So it comes naturally to me. So when he was like, "Let's do it," yeah, great. That sounds like a plan. So that's where I'm at with it.
How did you, one of the things that we talk about a lot on this podcast is mission, a sense of mission and purpose and kind of life passion sort of thing. And I can't imagine that, and Amy, I'm not forgetting you at all. I just want to dig a little deeper for a second with MC. How you have to be passionate about this to have done this for 15 years. So tell us about that for you.
I wouldn't say passionate in a sense. I kind of
okay.
I would be more along the lines of self-interested or selfish in that respect, because I think about it, or maybe I should use the concept of self-preservation. With everything that's going on in the world and watching us slowly destroying it with the overuse of fossil fuels, etc. We got dump fires with tires that have been burning for years, the pollution, they estimate in 5 years, the ocean will have more plastic in it than it will fish in a few years.
If we keep going the way we're going.
So, I mean, I understand we have everybody that's pro-environment and all that stuff because of their feelings of something. I'm doing it because I want to survive. I want my children to survive. We keep heating up this planet the way we're doing it. It's not looking that good. We keep we keep overusing our soils instead of trying to grow them at home. Well, it's not, the outlook looks bleak. So for me, it's more of a sense of survival than anything else. Survival for myself, survival for us as a species, my children, their children, etc. We're writing checks out of a bank account, the bank account being the earth, that our children, are going to end up having to cover. And eventually they're not going to be able to cover that debt. And, it's a very typical human thing. We're always playing this game of kick the can. Somebody's got to stop eventually, or somebody's going to pay. If we can't pay, then it's game over. So with that being said, the selfish part comes in and wanting us all to survive and be happy. It's kind of like, I don't want to start a war because I don't want to get shot. Sort of the same thing. So as far as purpose and mission goes, my mission is that my children don't have to pay for my mistakes, etc. My children don't have to clean up the mess I made. They don't have to decontaminate an ocean that I polluted. So with that being said, and reusing tires, refuse, garbage, which I don't look at as garbage, or I don't even look at it as recycling. It's repurposing or redistributing an indigenous material that can be found anywhere at any time. I can just walk outside down the road and I'll start finding bottles and cans and all that great stuff. Or, go ask the guy down the road getting ready to pay to ship his tires off to the dump to sit there and wait to catch fire. And start building a home out of it. And that's another key point with Earthships, is we make the building techniques as simple as possible so anybody can do it. You don't have this elitist thing. So it comes down to, if anybody can take what we are going to pollute the earth with and actually create a sustainable structure that doesn't take from the earth, it's independent. It's a great step in the right direction, because at least, or at best, we're not contributing anymore. Then your time and energy can be dedicated to reducing in other aspects. But a building that's not burning fossil fuels, great. Solar panels, once they're made, they're good for decades. So the electricity, I don't have to worry about nuclear, coal, etc. Well, cool, my carbon footprint is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. My kids don't have to clean it up.
Beautiful. And Amy, how about you? What brought you to this path?
I have a really good friend that's been doing it for the last 13 years. And so he has been trying to get me to come out here this whole time and, head to Taos. And he owns several of these homes himself out there. And I kept saying no, even though I would research them. And finally I said, all right, let me try this. And I moved straight into one. And I worked with him as well. He builds, and I just started to love it more and more, especially every day that, I woke up and it was bright in my house, and I could turn on my TV and watch TV, and maybe others in town didn't have power because there was a storm, or, I always had power and always had water. So it made me appreciate, it opened my eyes a lot and made me just appreciate what we can use to build a structure like this and the love that goes into it. And so I can't learn enough, and I can't do it enough. And we do work very hard, and it's worth it.
Absolutely. You guys are changing the world one Earthship at a time, really. And hopefully, that's a big part of the intention behind Sustainability Now. And with what we're doing with the podcast is to raise awareness so that people realize that options are available and
Absolutely.
that it's not a sacrifice.
It's not. And so many people think, oh, you're living off grid, and that means you're way out in some mountain, or up in 10 feet of snow in Alaska, and you have no access to normal people or that we're out there just roughing it. And you don't have to rough it living in one of these homes. You can have
Exactly.
all of those things that you want. I mean, we all live beyond our means. And I feel that in my personal experience, living in an Earthship has made me realize I don't need everything, but I can still have it if I want it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, do you guys have any suggestions for resources that people could, books or links that you'd recommend? Obviously, PangeaBuilders.com. That's PANGEA builders.com. But what else? And we're going to feature all these links on our website for people to get to you also at sustainabilitynow.global. But what might you recommend?
www.earthship.org. And Mike Reynolds has written a lot of books on the subject. He's the innovator who came up with a lot of these concepts.
Is there a particular book that you'd recommend above all else, maybe?
Water from the Sky.
Beautiful. Okay, great. And
Also, people could watch Garbage Warrior. I know that that's found on YouTube.
what is that? Is it a documentary?
It's a documentary about Mike Reynolds and how he started all of this. And he's been doing it for 40 years now, and we're still going. And so, we're thankful for what he came up with and thankful for just all of these concepts that we're using, and we're adding to it as well. We're continuing on with what he's been doing.
And he's still active in it, yes?
Yeah, he is.
Great. So what's the one question that I should have asked that I didn't ask?
What'd you have for lunch?
What did you have for lunch?
I don't want to know. It was not good.
Oh, okay. Next.
Hurry up and get something.
So, is there a question or one more thing that you might want to share with folks that we didn't cover?
I just want people to know that we do this all over the US, but we do it across the world as well.
In fact, so that's actually the next question is, how can people support you in what you're up to?
Open up their minds to the concepts of living sustainably and independently. We get very wrapped up in what's considered the norm, being, having to pay for my electric, having to pay for my water, having to do all that. The concept of sustainability is very lost in the last 100 years. And 100 years ago, that was the norm. You grew your own food. You were hungry, go get a chicken. You got your own water, etc. But we've drifted very, very, very far away from those concepts with modern technology, etc. But we should really be considering the idea of using that technology to keep ourselves independent. It's less burden on us as humans in general. We work to live instead of living to work or live to work. I don't know. It just seems that it's just this nonstop cycle that we could really break. Because once you've taken that leap into sustainability, you got free time. Instead of where we're going with automation is supposed to give us free time, but they said that in the 70s and it didn't pan out.
Right. So really what you're looking at through sustainability is an improvement in quality of life.
Absolutely.
Very much so. And it takes a lot. You got to pull the veil back, pull the curtain back, and look at it from another point of view. And a sustainable structure where you're not, and at the same time, and I'd like to point out, saving the planet, or not saving it, but preventing any further damage to the planet, so your children and children's children aren't paying for it, it's very much an act of self-preservation for yourself and what's coming after. Plus, I like my free time. Don't get much of it, but I like it.
Well, the fact is that you guys are in great demand. I know that you have a bunch of projects lined up, and if people want to reach you, they can do that through the Pangea Builders website, yes?
Yes.
And we'll have links again at sustainabilitynow.global. And I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. I want to thank our listeners and all you folks out there. You're the ones that are making it happen. You can take these ideas and these opportunities and run with them and really create a world that works. So our thanks and appreciation to you. And I guess that's it for now. Until next time, I'm your host, Mira Rubin. Live your best life, love the world around you, and together we can save the world.
Thank you for listening to Sustainability Now, solutions to shape a world that works. Visit sustainabilitynow.global for resources related to today's program. And be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us on social media.